North and South is a novel written from 1854 to 1855 by Elizabeth Cleghorn Gaskell. This time frame was during the Crimean War against Russia, with the reign of William IV and Queen Victoria shortly before. The story is set in England, first in Hellstone, then Milton. These locations were fictional, created by the author. Gaskell was not afraid to talk about death, disease, and poverty in her books, which was what made them so popular, even in modern times. North and South includes the theme of industry, showing the importance of that way of life, as well as a background into the lives of industrial workers. Elizabeth Gaskell was a Christian Unitarian, born in London on September 29, 1810, then moved to Cheshire in northern England. This move is similar to the main character in North and South, Margaret Hale, and both Gaskell and Margaret were both related to ministers and dedicated their lives to help those with less. The author married Reverend William Gaskell in 1832 and gave birth 6 times, but only 4 girls survived: Mary Ann, Margaret, Florence, and Julia. From 1850 to 1863, Gaskell wrote fiction in Household Words, a magazine edited by the author Charles Dickens. Gaskell published North and South from September 1854 to January 1855 in that magazine. Dickens suggested the title North and South instead of Margaret Hale, the title the author was initially planning on using. Without completing her book, Wives and Daughters, Gaskell died suddenly from a heart attack in late 1865. The story begins as Margaret's father, Mr. Hale, quits his job as clergyman to become a tutor in Milton in northern England. Margaret finds Milton to be smoky, strange, and full of poverty. Quote, "At Milton, the chimneys smoked, the ceaseless roar and mighty beat, and dizzying whirl of machinery struggled and strove perpetually." Unquote. Throughout the whole North and South, there is a deep theme of industry. Gaskell seemed to have experience in the industry of cotton, which was a main industrial tool in that time. Gaskell describes Margaret's northern travel to Milton. Quote, "Here and there, a great oblong, many-windowed factory stood up, like a hen among her chickens, puffing out black, unparliamentary smoke, and sufficiently accounting for the cloud which Margaret had taken to foretell rain. Here every van, every wagon and truck bore cotton, either in the raw shape in bags or the woven shape in bales of calico." Unquote. The smoke is a symbol for Margaret, as she had never seen smoke in this way before in Hellstone. Margaret says many things about industry and is scolded for saying wrong accusations. Her understanding of industrial workers is not very high at the beginning of the book. Margaret's father, Mr. Hale, tutors John Thornton, who is called Mr. Thornton to many throughout the story. Margaret and John are not friendly towards each other in the beginning. She instead befriends Mary and Bessie Higgins as well as their father, Nicholas Higgins. She meets Bessie and Nicholas after she picks flowers and gives them to Bessie. This begins their close friendship, which lasts until Bessie's death due to inhaling cotton dust. In this time that Margaret draws closer to Bessie, Margaret and John also slowly begin to see the other as a possible love interest. John sees Margaret's beauty, and Margaret sees John's rise from poverty. Margaret learns much about herself and the people and places around her throughout the whole of North and South. She learns more about poverty from becoming close friends with the Higgins family and learning firsthand what their life is like and the suffering they go through. Margaret also learns about love and what it is for her and her friends, especially about John and her love for Bessie as a friend. After she meets John and is living in Milton for a year and a half, she understands more about industry, factory life, and poverty. On a walk, Margaret finds herself in the middle of a strike in front of John's house and factory. John's mother and sister, Mrs. Thornton and Fanny, are also there. Mrs. Thornton is proud of her son and says, quote, "I am not become so fine as to desire to forget the source of my son's wealth and power." Unquote. The workers were furious because John had sent for Irish workers to take the place of the injured workers, so they went on strike. Irish labor was a popular, cheap resource for owners dealing with strikes. Many English people disliked the Irish who migrated to England. Some people in the story were not happy about the choice to bring Irish people to John's factory, which resulted in this way. Margaret tries to help John during the strike and is hit on the head with a stone and passes out. John sees how devoted she is and proposes to Margaret, but she declines, thinking that John has wrong assumptions about her actions. She thinks that he assumed her action in front of the mob meant that she cares for him. In another part of the story, Margaret's brother, Frederick Hale, is involved in a Navy conspiracy and could be hanged if he is on English soil. He is not heard from for a long period of time until Mrs. Hale becomes sick, so he visits. This situation is similar to that of Elizabeth Gaskell's brother, John Stevenson, who joined the Merchant Navy and disappeared after he went to India, with no record of what happened to him after. Frederick's shipmate Leonard sees him with Margaret at the train station, and after an argument, Frederick pushes him off a platform and is dead soon after from an unrelated organ failure. Margaret lies to the policeman when he questions her, saying she was not present and John supported her word. This act opens Margaret's eyes to the man John is if they are going to be together. After this, Mrs. Hale dies and John offers Nicholas a job in his factory. They become friends even though they are from different social classes. Mr. Hale soon dies and Margaret returns to Hellstone and inherits her father's friend's fortune. John visits her, telling her that his company has collapsed, so Margaret gives him money to save it. John proposes again, this time with gratitude and a deeper understanding of love towards her. Margaret accepts his proposal willingly with her whole heart, and the story concludes. Industry is not only found in North and South, but also in Letters from a Federal Farmer. This work is believed to have been written by Melancton Smith from November 1787 to January 1788 in a series of articles published in the Poughkeepsie Country Journal in New York. It was an anti-federalist criticizing the idea of the Constitution, which is going to be finalized soon. Quote, "Men of the first class associate more extensively, have a high sense of honor, possess abilities, ambition, and general knowledge. Men of the second class are not so much used to combining great objects. They possess less ambition and a larger share of honesty. Their dependence is principally on middling and small estates, industrious pursuits, and hard labor, while that of the former is principally on the emoluments of large estates and of the chief offices of government. As to merchants and traders, they are agents in almost all money transactions, give activity to government, and possess a considerable share of influence in it. It has been observed by an able writer that frugal industrious merchants are generally advocates for liberty." Unquote. This quote shows that both someone's class and industrial work are factors in their life, as well as both large themes for North and South. The industrial workers were, and still are, very important, as life would not run as well without them. Both Smith and Gaskell have similar views on industry, and Smith explains how industrial people live, as Smith's work explains much about farmers and other workers. Farmers are not close to factories, but they are both still workers nonetheless. Industrial workers were not given as much credit for what they did, and Smith understood this. North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell tells much about the theme of industry in England in the 19th century and explains details of industrial life, resulting in a relatable novel for people in that time. John Thornton represents the life of industry as he runs his own factory. A strike shows the reality of people's response to industry and changes they do not like. Nicholas says this when he first meets Margaret. Quote, "North and South has both met and made kind of friends in this big, smoky place." Unquote.